Let's talk about one of the biggest puzzles of our time. How does the aviation industry, the very thing that connects our world, keep growing, while at the same time trying to save it? It's a huge challenge, right? And with a deadline of 2050, the clock is definitely ticking.
Okay, so here's the core of the problem. Air travel isn't slowing down. Not at all. In fact, we're expecting passenger numbers to pretty much double in the next few decades. That means more planes in the sky, a lot more flights, and just a massive demand for jet fuel.
But, and here's the crazy part, at the exact same time all that growth is happening, the entire global aviation industry has signed up for this incredibly bold goal, hitting net zero carbon emissions by 2050. So, how on earth do you fly twice as many people while completely erasing your carbon footprint? Let's get into it.
To really get our heads around the solution, we first need to understand just how big the problem is. So let's take a look at aviation's actual climate impact.
You know, you often hear that number, that aviation is about 2% of global CO2. And sure, that's true. But what this shows us, and this is the key part, is the bigger picture. Once you factor in other things like nitrogen oxides and the warming effect of contrails, you know those white streaks planes leave in the sky, the total climate impact is actually a whole lot bigger.
And that larger impact is why, back in 2022, something pretty historic happened. 184 nations got together and agreed on this long-term goal to get to net zero. It was a huge deal because it aligned the entire world of aviation with the Paris Agreement, turning it into one unified global mission.
So the good news is, there is a plan. It's not just one magic bullet solution. As you can see, it's a whole strategy with different parts: new tech, flying smarter, removing carbon. But you can't help but notice that one slice of that pie is absolutely massive. A full 65% of the entire plan hinges on just one thing.
Which brings us right to that 65% solution. This is, without a doubt, the single most important piece of the net zero puzzle: sustainable aviation fuel. You'll hear it called SAF.
So what is SAF? Well, think of it like a renewable version of jet fuel. It can be made from all sorts of things: used cooking oil, waste from farms, even CO2 that's been pulled right out of the air. Now, the reason it's such a game changer is because it's a drop-in fuel. That means you can literally just pour it into the tanks of the planes we already have, using the airports we already have, and cut life cycle emissions by up to 94%. Pretty amazing.
Sounds like the perfect answer, right? A clean, drop-in fuel. So if it's so great, why aren't we using it on every single flight right now? Well, this is where the sheer scale of the challenge really starts to sink in.
And just look at the gap we need to close here. Right now, the world produces about 1 million tons of SAF. To hit the targets, we need to get to as much as 51 million tons by 2030. That's not a small jump. That is a monumental industrial-level scale-up that has to happen in just a handful of years. And on top of that, you've got the other huge hurdle: cost. At the moment, SAF is anywhere from 2 to 4 times more expensive than regular old jet fuel. So not only do we have to figure out how to make way more of it, we also have to figure out how to make it affordable.
Okay, so while the whole world is racing to scale up SAF, there's another really important battle being fought on a different front: the airplanes themselves. And this is where we're seeing both immediate wins and some truly revolutionary ideas for the future.
You can kind of think of it as 2 tracks running in parallel. On one track, we have what we can do right now: fleet renewal. Just swapping out older planes for new ones gives you an immediate 15 to 25% boost in fuel efficiency. But then you've got the other track, the future. And this is the really cool stuff: planes powered by hydrogen or electricity that promise zero emissions on short-haul flights.
And this roadmap kind of shows how it all fits together. We're getting those efficiency gains from new planes today. Then you've got companies like Airbus aiming for 2035 to get the first commercial hydrogen planes in the air. Both of these streams are absolutely critical if we're going to hit that big 2050 net zero goal. But what if you could cut emissions without changing the fuel or the plane? That's where this next part comes in. Turns out, just by flying smarter, we can chip away another 5% of that net zero target.
Some of these are pretty straightforward, like just using one engine while taxiing on the ground. Others are super high-tech, like using real-time weather data to constantly find the most fuel-efficient route. My personal favorite, though, is formation flying. Yeah, having planes fly together like a flock of birds to reduce drag. It sounds like science fiction, but it could cut CO2 by 5% on a single trip.
So for that last really tough 10% of emissions, there's a two-step plan. Step 1 is kind of the temporary fix, carbon offsetting. Through a program called Corsia, airlines can buy credits that fund green projects. But the real long-term goal is step 2, actually pulling that leftover carbon right out of the atmosphere using tech like direct air capture and then storing it permanently.
So, we've got the fuel strategy, the new plane technology, and the operational plans. We have a map to get to net zero. But that map comes with a gigantic price tag, and it's going to require a level of global teamwork that, frankly, we've never seen before. Getting this done is going to require one of the largest capital investments in the history of industry. We're talking trillions of dollars needed to build new SAF plants, modernize the entire global fleet of aircraft, and retool thousands of airports. It's a massive undertaking.
And it's not just the amount of money. Aviation is just uniquely tough. As this quote points out, the R&D takes forever, the safety standards are, thankfully, the highest in the world, and the investments are just astronomical. It is one of the hardest industries to decarbonize, period.
Which really brings us to the final big question. The industry has a plan, it has a roadmap, the technologies are on their way. But this isn't something airlines and manufacturers can do on their own. It's going to take governments, investors, energy companies, all of us working together. The map to a green future for flying exists. The challenge now is whether we can all come together to build the road.